Hello friends, and welcome back to Scaling Stories. Today, I've got some more highly upvoted posts from Best of Redditor updates. Like always, I'll be reading you the posts and giving you my opinions, and I also hope you do the same in the comments down below. Also, I'm currently only in Spotify's creator program, so watching on there would help me out a ton. Thank you so much for your support. Today's first story comes from the Relationships subreddit. It was posted by mygodf on November 24th, 2015, and was titled, Me, 30 male, with my coworker / project manager / I don't know, 34 female, few months. Pen, company, Inc., babies, F. Throwaway because I'm an idiot. This crap will probably be long, but I'll do my best. I'm a software developer, and about 5 months ago, I began a new project where I am working for a large firm and work on-site for a local client for a couple of projects they have ongoing. It is fascinating work, and I have enjoyed it quite a bit more than anything in recent memory. There's a joint team of about 10 folks, but for my main project, I work with one person. I'll call her Laura, and she is the project manager, works for the client. So, while I don't report to her, per se, she is in charge of the administrative side of the project. I don't even know if this is relevant, but we are effectively peer coworkers. Laura started off a bit cold to me because I think she, and plenty of others, was a bit jaded by my company. That changed quickly once I started delivering, and also I think she saw how engaged I am. She is brilliant, and we put our heads together to solve some very difficult problems, usually working heavy overtime. About a month after I started, we hit our first big project milestone and barely beat the deadline. We went out for drinks after work to celebrate. We both live close to the office, so I offered to walk her home since it was late and her building is on the way to mine. We ended up sleeping together and have been a few times a week ever since. I didn't want to mess up anything at work, facepalm, so I haven't brought up anything regarding our status or whatever, and neither has she. At work, I'm all business, and so is she. We don't take lunch together or really do anything not directly related to the project. Granted, we're both working 60+ hour weeks also. She's worked her ass off to get this project off the ground. Government funding, proposal writing, conceiving the whole idea, and that is the most attractive thing about her to me, in addition to being gorgeous and super nerdy. For the last few months, it seemed like we are friends with benefits, since we don't go on dates other than drinks near our condos sometimes. Sometimes we sleep over, sometimes we don't. Yesterday, she asked to come over to my place because she wanted to talk, and I figured she was going to break things off by her tone. Wrong. She told me she is 8 weeks pregnant. Here's the part where I know I effed up. After my initial shock, the first question I asked was, "Is it mine?" She burst into tears and stormed out, and I tried to stop her and apologize, but she screamed at me in the middle of the hallway, so I just let her go. She wouldn't answer any of my calls last night either, and she called out of work today and tomorrow and has the rest of the week off. How do I get her to talk to me? I've been a nervous wreck since last night, and I just don't know what to think. I've been thinking she's getting an abortion, and that's why she called out? My head is all over the place, and I just want to talk to her. I will support her, no matter what, but I don't know how to do that or what she wants / needs from me. Should I send an email apologizing? Wait outside her building or show up at her doorstep? Wait for her to contact me? People have been asking me if I'm okay all day because I'm so out of it. I don't know if I should quit my job or what. Maybe I should text her and ask that? Scaling Stories Corner. Okay, so OP was seriously pretty dumb here. If the baby wasn't yours, the person who has been regularly hooking up with Laura for the past 4 months, and by OP's account and words, he has been sleeping with Laura multiple times a week. So if the baby wasn't yours, why would Laura want to come to your place and tell you she's pregnant? That was like a no-brainer, and I can see why Laura burst into tears and started crying. Because imagine you're telling the person who's supposed to be the father of your child that you're pregnant, and he instantly hits you with, "Who else have you been sleeping with?" Not those exact words, but the meaning is the same. Since Laura isn't picking up OP's calls, and he says he would support her no matter what, I think he should just text her exactly that and apologize for asking if it was his. Because I think that's a terrible thing to say to someone you've been hooking up with for 4 months, and I'm assuming you were having unprotected sex that entire time. Now here are some of the top / relevant comments from the original post. Commenter 1 says, "This is exactly why you don't crap where you eat. You're 30 years old and have a good job. Yet you were dumb enough to get into this crap. Good job. No, you don't just show up at her doorstep. WTF? Your question was totally appropriate since you two weren't in an exclusive relationship. However, I understand that she was upset. Sounds like she's not the person to have multiple partners at once. Wait it out. She'll contact you. Don't bother her for now. OP says, I know, it was stupid to get involved. I, especially, should have known better. After thinking about it more, I do think it was an appropriate question, but it shouldn't have been the first thing I blurted out. A while ago, she told me I'm the first person she slept with in almost a year. I'm pretty certain she's not seeing anyone else, based on other conversations and how much she works, but I guess it is still possible. I wasn't actually planning to show up at her place unannounced, but I just can't think of anything else, and those are the kinds of crappy ideas I'm having. I'm just desperate to talk to her. I couldn't sleep last night and can hardly eat. Commenter 2 says, no, it's not an appropriate question. Why would she tell you about her pregnancy if she didn't think it was yours? And if you think she's the kind of person who would lie to you about it, then why would you think she'd tell the truth if you asked if it was yours? Life pro tip. If a woman you're sleeping with tells you she's pregnant, she is also telling you that you are the father. However, as for what you do about it, send a single email apologizing for blurting out something inane and hurting her. Tell her you are here to support her in whatever she chooses to do. Then leave it at that. Update 3 days later. The advice I got here was mixed between go see her and give her space. I ended up buying a teddy bear, sewing its foot to its mouth, and leaving it at her door, holding a little I'm sorry card, on my way to work Wednesday. Barely an hour later, I got a text from her asking if I wanted to come have a serious conversation and see my child's first picture, sonogram, after work. I couldn't wait, and I took a half day and left to go see her at lunchtime. When I got there, I started profusely apologizing and trying to explain myself, completely fumbling my words. But Laura stopped me and said she understood and wasn't mad. She said she got so upset because I was the first person she was telling, and she was really nervous I would have a bad reaction or try to make her terminate. She also thought I was sleeping with other people because I assumed she was. Then she told me she is 100% keeping the baby, but won't take me to court if I don't want to raise the child with her. I couldn't hold back my laughter at this and told her she is crazy if she thinks this kid will be anything but priority number 1 to me. She seemed visibly relieved and then brought up a paternity test, basically saying we will get one once the baby comes. She also brought up names and said she wants to pick the first name, but wants me to approve and for it to have my last name. She must have read a checklist of ways to ease a freaking out father-to-be because I was losing my mind trying to figure out how to bring this stuff up without putting my foot in my mouth again. I then switched the conversation to us and told her I'm helplessly falling like a brick for her, and, at this point, the work relationship is the least important to me. We both admitted our feelings for each other and being scared to bring them up because of our professional relationship. I told her I want her to officially be my girlfriend, and she joked, "This was all it took?" We agreed on direct communication from here on out, no more silent treatment, and she knows I'll be there for her every step of the way. So, Laura and I talked some more about how things will need to work and came to the conclusion that we would live separately until the baby arrives. Then, she'll rent her condo out and move into mine. Does that sound like a good idea? We know it's not perfect, but it seems like a good plan, and we can go back if it doesn't work out. We're going to figure out what to do about work after the holidays. There's enough stress already, and she won't start showing for another couple of months, so we have time to strategize about how/when to tell people at work. I'm all ears for suggestions on this. I'm still really scared, and my emotions are changing by the minute, but at least there is some semblance of a plan now. Now, to tell the family members. Scaling Stories Corner. Well, I'm glad they officially had to talk about being boyfriend and girlfriend. It only took 4 months of sleeping with each other multiple times a week while they're both working 60+ hour weeks and a baby on the way. I do understand that it's understandable how if they don't have the boyfriend and girlfriend talk, then it can be assumed that they've been sleeping with other people at the same time. So I like how Laura said they're going to get a paternity test done and everything, so there's absolutely no uncertainty. But also from her perspective, she was completely loyal to OP from when they started sleeping with each other, and she was just hurt when OP asked if it was his because she thought that meant he was sleeping with other people. And to that, All I gotta say is bring up the boyfriend-girlfriend exclusive relationship mumbo-jumbo much earlier on so this doesn't happen. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the update post. Commenter 1 says, "The only gotcha I see is moving in after the baby. You guys will have a newborn and be packing and trying to adjust to each other on no sleep. That's stacking a lot of relationship stressors on top of each other. I'd recommend tackling them one at a time. Move in before the baby. Then, you can figure out living together and be around more to support her during the pregnancy. Then, you'll hopefully have the house set up and your living together figured out, so when the baby comes, you have a better foundation to focus on that. If she doesn't want to fully move, at least start the changeover over the next few months." OP adds an edit to his post. "Holy crap, my original post only got like 5 responses. I will definitely be talking to her about moving in sooner this weekend. My mom suggested this too when I told her yesterday. A couple of reoccurring things I keep seeing in the comments are that we need to discuss finances and I need to get a paternity test. As for the finances, we've talked a little bit about it and we make over $300K combined. Once we actually see what our expenses look like, it shouldn't be a problem to come up with a plan/budget. I'm willing to pay all baby-related expenses, so I'm sure we can find a solution that works for us. As for the paternity test, she's said she wants to get one before I sign the birth certificate. When we first got together, she told me I was the first person she'd slept with in close to a year, and the hours she puts in makes it unlikely she's seeing someone else, though it's possible. She's fair, level-headed, responsible, and, from what I've seen, honest. I trust her and am going to until she does something to prove I shouldn't. We also realize this is not a great way to start a relationship or a family, but all we can do is try our best to compromise and make it work for the sake of our baby. If we're not a good couple together, so be it. We both have all the tools and support to give this child a great life. That is our primary goal, and our relationship will be the icing on the cake if we can get through this." Second update, 10 years, 8 months later. A friend found this post on r/best of Redditor updates and suggested I come update you guys. First, I just want to thank Reddit. Everyone talks trash about the hive mind, but it helped me when I was having crippling panic attacks, not something I've had before or since. It's also obvious looking back. In the moment, I was just blind and scared. We ended up getting married before the baby came because after living together for a few months, we were both all in, and there's nothing like family pressure to get the ball rolling. We now have Lana, 10 female, who, in fact, knows everything, and Thing 1 and Thing 2, 6 male/female, who just want to see the world burn. We have a great marriage, and I really am the luckiest guy on earth. She is a genius and puts up with me being such a bonehead. We had an argument when the oldest was 2, and Laura wanted to go for her PhD, and I swore up and down it wouldn't be worth the move, and we'd never recoup the financial hit. We argued, I caved, and we moved to the PNW, and she got pregnant not long after. She, of course, crushed her PhD coursework/research, while I worked extra contracts, my choice, to make sure we had extras. The twins were born in 2020, and that was probably the hardest time of our lives, just trying to keep it together, but we made it work. She immediately got a job as a lower-level executive running the healthcare division of one of the biggest big tech companies out there. She made sure to remind me of my concerns about our finances by asking me to review her offers and help her decide. Staggering amounts that looked like typos to a mediocre tech bro like me. So, off to Build-A-Bear I went, and now we have 2 bears sitting on the mantle with feet sewn into their mouths. I'm so fortunate and blessed to have such a great wife and a great family. And it's crazy to think that it may have worked out differently if not for you folks here talking some sense into me. No, I'm not crying. You're crying. I just got a little something in my eye. Thank you, and sorry I did not update after all the advice I received. Okay, friends, so that concludes our first story of the day. Next up, we have a story from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. It was posted by Stunning Factory 871 on June 23rd, 2026, and was titled, Am I the jerk for finally supporting my husband's ultimatum to his late wife's parents after they've repeatedly excluded my son? I, 35 female, am in a loving blended family, but the extended family drama is crushing me. I have a wonderful 10-year-old son. My current husband, 32 male, lost his first wife 4 years ago and has a 7-year-old son. We've built a beautiful family of 4. My husband treats both boys exactly the same. I do the same with my stepson, and the boys love each other like real brothers. We're genuinely happy despite everything. The problem is my husband's ex-in-laws, his late wife's parents. They constantly badmouth me and paint me as the evil stepmom, feeding every nasty stereotype, mean, neglectful, manipulative, jealous, etc., to my husband's parents and anyone who will listen. For example, after my stepson had a minor injury, they said things like, "Stepmoms can never be real. Why would she even care about him?" They accused me of manipulating my stepson and tried to turn everyone against me. Every time they visit, they completely ignore my son. No greetings, no conversation. They bring gifts, toys, chocolates, and sweets only for their biological grandson. When my kind-hearted stepson immediately shares everything with my son, as he always does, they get visibly annoyed, say things like, "Why are you sharing with him? That's for you only," and even try to pull him away. My husband has been solid and always says other people's opinion don't matter. He wanted to set a strong boundary earlier by announcing on my stepson's birthday, "If you are family, then you are family to both kids. If that's not possible, you are not family and not invited." I stopped him because I thought a nice talk would work. I've been holding my husband back from taking any harsh steps in order to respect his ex-in-laws, as they lost their daughter. I wanted to respect the memory of his late wife and give them time to adjust. On my stepson's birthday last year, his side of the family showed up with gifts and love. On my son's birthday, almost no one came, and the few who did showed up empty-handed. Gifts aren't important to us as adults, but to a child, it feels like rejection and being left out. My son was sad and has started asking me painful questions because of this exclusion, like why don't they like him or what he did wrong, which breaks my heart. I have zero family on my side, so he doesn't have that extended network. His birthday is coming up soon, and I'm dreading it. I'd even be happy to buy gifts myself that they could give him if that makes it easier. I just don't want him to feel left out again. Recently, after they left, my son refused to eat the chocolates or play with the shared toys. He quietly kept everything in his pockets and returned it all to me. That broke me. I'm completely fine with them loving their biological grandson more. That's natural. But the open hostility, exclusion of my son, and constant comments are painful. Am I the jerk for supporting this hard line now, after previously trying to keep the peace? Or should I still be trying to make nice for the sake of family and my husband's late wife's memory? I just want my son to feel included and loved on his birthday instead of rejected again. Scaling Stories Corner. Nah, I think that's kind of evil of the late wife's parents. I know they lost their daughter, and that's very tragic and sad, but that's no excuse for how they're treating OP and her son. The grandparents even telling the 7-year-old to not share things with his 10-year-old brother was just insane, because how can you treat a child like that? Like, what did the 10-year-old kid do wrong besides exist? And what did OP do wrong except find love? It's not like she was an affair partner who stole away OP's husband. I think OP played it too nice at the start, and she should have let her husband enforce boundaries sooner with the grandparents. It is actually so respectable and makes so much sense to say you're either a parent to both kids or you're going to be a parent to neither, because look what happens when you only let them be a parent to one kid. The other kid feels neglected and ignored, and he's heartbroken at just 10 years old and thinks that he did something wrong to make people not like him. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the original post. Commenter 1 says, "Not the jerk. Your husband is stepping up. The trick is going to be managing the relationship with the boys so that there is no resentment. If you're no contact/low contact with the family for a while, that will be fine. On a separate note, who shows up to a kid's birthday party without a gift? What blatant jerks?" Commenter 2 says, "Your husband absolutely is doing the right thing. It's great to hear how your nuclear family is navigating life together. Time to limit exposure to the boys' maternal grandparents before they start planting seeds in the boys' brains. Shame on them." Commenter 3 says, "I kind of understand why the late wife's parents are more interested in their biological grandson, but doesn't your son have 2 sets of grandparents as well?" OP says, "Unfortunately not. My parents passed away, and I don't have any contact with my husband's family." OP adds an edit to her post. "I've finally stopped holding my husband back. He is now taking strict action and has given an ultimatum to his side of the family. Either they are family to both kids or family to none. Update 9 days later. My husband's parents came over for dinner. After dinner, they started a conversation about the ultimatum my husband had given them earlier. He had finally sat them down and asked why they blindly believe everything his ex-in-laws say about me. They responded that they've seen everything with their own eyes and listed their issues with me. That I'm too harsh and casual when talking about his mother's death. For example, saying she died or she is dead instead of using softer words. That I'm careless, especially after their grandson had a small injury. That I'm trying to erase his mother's memory. They also accuse me of manipulating my husband about the cat. My stepson wanted a cat, but my husband said no because he felt it would be cruel to bring a pet home when we can't give it proper care and attention. His parents tried to convince him to get one anyway. I didn't even know there was any argument between him and his parents over this. I only knew that he had told my stepson no when he asked. Now, they're claiming I manipulated him into refusing. My husband defended me and explained, "Our therapist specifically recommended that we be direct and straightforward about his mother's death so my stepson can learn the permanence of death at his age. That's why I use clear wording, not just about his mom, but even referring to my own late relative. When he, my husband, was a child, he got injured often, including breaking his arm once, but that didn't mean his mother was careless. He asked them, 'Do you think I'm stupid or blind? If my wife was actually doing something wrong, don't you think I would notice?' The conversation turned into a big argument, especially over the cat issue." Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the update post. Commenter 1 says, "Wait, I'm confused. The first post, at first, says the husband's ex-in-laws, deceased wife parents, were the issue, and then later talks about your husband's family/parents. This post also talks about your husband's family. So, which is it? I would agree his parents should, for the most part, treat the boys the same. But his former wife's family? Absolutely not. As for how you refer to your stepson's mother, think carefully here. Yes, you want the kid to understand this is permanent, but ask yourself how you'd want someone to talk about you if you were the one who died, or if it was your mother. Right now, I'm not sure this is real, given the mix-up between former in-laws and his parents." Commenter 2 says, "It's both sets of parents, as they are still close, based on my reading." OP says, "Yeah, exactly, and I have become a scapegoat." OP says to another commenter, "My husband's ex-in-laws badmouthed me to all the relatives from my husband's side, including my husband's parents, so the ultimatum my husband gave was for all, and my husband's parents came to talk about it, and this happened." Commenter 3 says, "How much of the ex-in-laws' dislike of you is because you are complaining about them not treating your child like a grandchild? Frankly, I think you are a jerk for expecting that they owe something to a child with whom they have zero relationship. Your husband's parents should be treating him like a grandson because he is their son's stepchild. Your kid is nothing to your stepchild's grandparents at all. So frankly, I can see why they don't like you much. They lost their daughter at a young age, and now her replacement has decided they owe her kid a relationship? Pfft. If you have your way, then your stepkid not only has a dead mom but no grandparents. Meanwhile, your child probably has at least some grandparents between your parents and his father's parents." OP says, "I agree that husband's ex-in-laws will probably never treat both boys the same, but it wouldn't hurt them to be nice to my son. Telling my stepson not to share his toys and stuff with him is totally unacceptable. My husband and I are doing our best to raise them as brothers." Second update, 2 weeks later. My son turned 11 yesterday. It was better than last year, but still pretty awkward overall. Most of the relatives we invited from my husband's side actually showed up. It was clear they mainly came because they didn't want to upset my husband after the ultimatum. They brought gifts for both boys and stayed polite, but the vibe was very, "we're here to keep the peace," rather than genuine warmth. Most of them kept interactions with my son short and surface level while being more natural with my stepson. We also invited my husband's ex-in-laws, but they didn't show up, which we expected. After cake and presents, my husband pulled his parents aside for a private talk. He explained the therapist's advice about using direct words like died and death so our stepson can properly understand what happened. He invited them to join us for a therapy session if they wanted. They agreed it made sense and said they'd think about coming. Before everyone left, my husband and I thanked them all for showing up. We told them sincerely that it meant a lot to us that they came and were there for both boys. I'm happy they showed up. I completely understand that my son and my stepson are not the same for them. I know they'll always love their biological grandson more. That's natural. I just want basic kindness and inclusion for my son, and yesterday was a step in the right direction. My son had a decent day. He was happy about his gifts and that so many people came this year. He wasn't ignored or left out like before, and he didn't ask any heartbreaking questions. He did notice the difference in how people acted toward him, but he still went to bed smiling. I have to say, my husband has been absolutely amazing through all of this. He stayed strong, protected both boys, held the boundary, and made sure our son still felt celebrated. I'm so lucky to have such a wonderful, fair, and protective partner. He really is the rock of our family. It feels like a lot of this is damage control on their part, but at least my son got to celebrate without feeling rejected. We're keeping the boundary firm and taking the small progress where we can get it. Scaling Stories Corner. I think it's good that people aren't just straight up ignoring OP's son anymore, because literally that other commenter saying that no one owes OP's son anything because he's not related to the rest of the family was absolutely backcap crazy on drugs. OP is married to her husband now, so they're a combined family. There are two brothers being raised alongside each other who very much consider each other family. To just absolutely neglect the other kid and not speak to him or give him any presents because he's not blood related is just insanely heartless and cruel. Imagine this was just OP, and she marries her husband, but everyone on her husband's side of the family ignores her and treats her like she doesn't exist just because she's not their original wife. I mean, after all, she's not blood related or originally the first wife. That is how they treat her. That's obviously wrong because she's part of the family now, having married her husband. Her son is the same way, is now part of the family, even if he's not blood related. If you want a relationship with OP's husband and the stepson, then you need to treat OP and her son with proper respect. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the update post. Commenter 1 says, I have to ask, why did relatives give presents to both boys? Gifts should have been just for the birthday child. Other than that, you're doing well. Hold the line. Commenter 2 says, they love OP's stepson. Since they primarily came to keep the peace, they gave a token gift to OP's biological son. Their preference is still for OP's stepson. Indirectly, they're telling OP that, though OP's husband made them come down for fairness, their allegiance will always be toward their blood, aka OP's stepson. They won't give a gift to OP's son on the stepson's birthday. That would give them smug satisfaction, I suppose. As long as the partiality isn't in your face, OP will let it go, I guess. I'm glad that she has a strong husband. Hopefully, therapy sessions will help bring down the animosity toward OP and her child. Ultimately, the stepson needs a kind mother, which OP is. Commenter 3 says, it was OP's biological son's birthday, wasn't it? So, they got the birthday boy a token gift and gave their biological relative a larger gift, even though it wasn't their birthday? OP says, their preference will always be for my stepson, no doubt about that. Yeah, as long as partiality isn't in my face, I don't have any problem. Commenter 4 says, I can get on board with your husband's family treating your son better, but expecting that from his deceased wife's family or cutting them off over it still gives me the full body ick. As a stepchild, I know why you want his parents to treat your son more fairly. My second husband's family treating my oldest like another grandchild is, in a small way, important to me, though I take advantage of it being voluntary because blending is natural to our families. However, my late husband's parents being forced to treat my youngest like their grandchild at risk of being cut out, and he shares blood with their grandchild, seems rude, disrespectful, and cruel. I would never want to interfere with their relationship with my older child like that. They don't owe their resources, their time, or their money to a child I chose to have with the partner I chose after their son died. I expect only that they are cordial and kind when we're in a room together. OP says, the main problem with my husband's ex-in-laws is not that they don't treat my son the same. If they can't be nice, they should not be rude. And they try to put thoughts into my stepson's mind that my son is not his brother and that sharing things with him is wrong, when my husband and I are trying to raise them as brothers. Third update, 12 days later. Hi everyone. I wasn't planning on making another update, but a lot of people asked what happened after my husband's parents agreed to attend a therapy session with us. Birthday celebrations. A lot of people ask why my posts focus on relatives instead of my son's friends. In my husband's family, birthdays have always been celebrated in two parts. On the child's actual birthday, we have a family celebration with relatives. Then, on the following weekend, the birthday child has a separate celebration with their friends. That's the tradition both boys have grown up with, and they genuinely enjoy it. My son absolutely celebrated with his friends as well. It just wasn't relevant to my previous post because all of the issues happened during the family celebration. Our relationship timeline. Quite a few people also wondered how long after my husband's first wife passed away we met. She had passed away about 1 year and 5 months before we met. We dated for 15 months before getting married, and we've now been married for 16 months. Some people assumed our relationship started immediately after his loss, but that wasn't the case. Now for the update. After my son's birthday, my husband's parents came with us to one of our therapy sessions. I honestly expected it to turn into another argument, but it didn't. Our therapist first explained why she had recommended that we use direct words like died and death when talking to my stepson instead of softer phrases like passed away. She explained that children his age understand the permanence of death much better when adults use clear, direct language, and that euphemisms can sometimes be confusing. She also explained something that I hadn't really thought about before. Because my stepson lost his mother so young, everyone around him naturally wanted to protect him from more pain. Between us, my husband's parents, and his late mother's parents, a lot of adults tried to soften the reality of what had happened. The therapist said that while those intentions came from love, constantly shielding a child from direct conversations about death can make it harder for them to fully understand that death is permanent. That was one of the reasons she encouraged us to use clear language and answer his questions honestly in an age-appropriate way. She emphasized that helping a child understand the permanence of death isn't cruel. It's actually an important part of healthy grieving. She also made it clear that this wasn't something I decided on by myself. It was advice we were given in therapy and had been following consistently. My husband's parents admitted they hadn't known that. They said they genuinely thought I was being insensitive. My husband then told his parents something that I think needed to be said. He told them that if they ever have concerns about our younger one or about any parenting decision we make, he wants them to come directly to us instead of making assumptions. He said he'd much rather have an uncomfortable conversation than have people filling in the blanks or believing someone else's version of events. It was awkward at times. There were quiet moments. After the session, they thanked us and left. There was no big emotional talk. The session simply ended with everyone understanding each other's perspective a little better than before. Since then, we've noticed small but meaningful changes. I'm glad they came. It feels like a small step, not a big change. We're not expecting miracles. Scaling Stories Corner. I think it's good that the parents went to therapy with OP and her husband and got a better perspective on things. And maybe now they can influence the rest of the family to actually stop being mean to OP and her kid because they don't deserve that kind of treatment just because she happened to meet him and become wife and husband. I disagree with the previous commenter who was saying stuff like they were getting the ick because the late parent's wife got the ultimatum to treat OP's son fairly or get completely cut off. Like the late wife's parents literally completely ignore OP's son's existence. Not even a hello or greeting when they used to visit. Probably not even proper eye contact either. They probably gave him the look like you would give if you saw a cockroach in your kitchen. They would try to teach their grandchild to not share things with his stepbrother. And to treat a child like that just because he's not blood related, that's just cruel and definitely shouldn't be allowed in OP's family or near the children. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the update post. Commenter 1 says, OP, the one thing I really like about these posts is the way your husband supports you. We constantly read stories like this where the husband is spineless and doesn't stand up for his wife. It's really refreshing seeing a couple that acts like a team. Commenter 2 says, while I agree with you, I also think that Reddit has a skewed statistic in this aspect. Most couples working as a team and with healthy communication, thankfully, won't need to go to Reddit for second opinions or advice. Okay friends, so that concludes today's video. Leave a like and comment down below to let me know what you thought of it, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.